Starting. All attendees.
Good morning and good to see you all today in our 21st episode of Business Unusual. Can you believe it's been 21 episodes? Well, we are excited to have you on today. We're going to be giving you the down low, the skinny, the straight scoop, and the 411 on ebooks and white papers on how you're going to use them in your content program in order to generate leads and qualify opportunities, and of course, maybe even make a little bit of money while you're at it. And that's what we're going to dive into today. Chris and I have spent some time putting this together. We are your featured speakers of the day. I'm going to do a quick wave, and then I'm going to kill webcam on my end so that I don't kill my bandwidth, because it's what I do. And then we're going to dive in and get started with the presentation today. So Chris, you get to drive, right?
Sure. Do you want to tell them who you are and what your company's name is? And
oh, I guess I should do that, shouldn't I? Managing partner with SalesWorks. Name is Brendan Filbert, and I am here to help you find and secure your next opportunity, whether that's a prospect or your next engagement or a consulting role, whatever that may happen to be. That's what we're all about, is how do you make those opportunities happen? And we focused on our Business Unusual webinar series. Chris and I partnered, 21 episodes ago, talking about how we help companies pivot in their sales and marketing efforts. So that's our focus with this series, and I'm delighted to have Chris driving today. Chris.
And I'm Chris Motley from Motley Creations, where we make you look good. What we have is managed marketing services. So we help small and medium-sized businesses with big goals find right-sized solutions to execute on their marketing strategy. What we do is develop the brand and the image that they need to have to be successful. And I thank Brendan once again for the 21st time for allowing me to partner with her on this.
This has been a lot of fun. So Chris has been one of the things that I do want to kick things off today with. Just think a little bit bigger as I'm talking through our topic today, and as Chris is going through his part as well, on where can collaboration make sense for you and your business as well. So sometimes when you start looking at creating content and putting anything together, it can become so much work, and it's just overwhelming, and it almost feels like it's just too much to try to take on. And I have to tell you that having Chris as my partner in this initiative has been a game changer for me. So that's one of the things that, if you take nothing else out of today, just think about, expand your own thinking about how would you engage and support another business, whether it be a professional colleague, whether it's someone within your own organization, or whether it's external or partner with a client. There's so many different things we can do. So expand your thinking a little bit about how some of these concepts might work for you in your business. All right, now let's talk about who we're going to serve today. This session, we specifically wrote this with some people in mind. And those people that we're thinking about, wait a minute, where did it go? I had it and then it went. Okay, there it went. Sorry, I'm having a tech moment over here. We are wanting to serve thought leaders that are responsible for generating leads for their leads on a consistent basis. They also need to, well, let's call it qualify prospects. And when I'm talking about qualifying prospects, we're going to dig into this a lot more later. But just have it in mind of, if there are spots where there's a barrier to entry for someone to engage with you, like they've got to be experiencing a trigger event or a stage in their business, whatever that may happen to be, that's another great spot for you to leverage content. And then of course, make it so easy for a referral partner to share your ideas or your concepts and really talk about how amazing you are. That's another thing that we can accomplish with this. Now, business development, you may have a spot in your cycle, and I don't know if y'all are using a CRM. If not, you should be. It's a pretty valuable tool that can really help you wrap your arms around where in the sales process you might be getting stuck. And if you notice that there is, and the number that we always used whenever I was coaching salespeople with Sandler, is if you have something that happens more than 3 times in a 30-day time period, that's called a repetitive non-productive behavior. And it's normally either someplace that you're stuck or it's someplace that your process is broken. And when your process is broken, or you have something that's happening where, let's say that you've got a technology solution and the business needs to have a particular system installed and functioning for your solution to overlay on top of it, that would be known as a sticky point. And that may be someplace that you want to bring in an ebook or another solution that guides them through the implementation of that process. So there are a lot of different things that you can look at putting this content together beyond just having something that has your name on it that's a published book. Also, you may find that you can actually create a nice little income stream. We have folks that I've talked to when I was putting this content on our schedule about 2 months ago. I actually posted this in a group of other trainers. There's one gentleman in there that actually wrote an ebook on writing an ebook that makes over $8,000 a month on selling his ebook. And that's really what he does for the most part, is just sell ebooks. So the income can be not so insignificant in some ways, but it certainly is nice when you can leverage your content in a way that it just is multifaceted in the benefits that it can do for you. Okay, Chris, advance. Big question, why on earth do you want to do this? So we're going to talk first about the why behind it. Now, there's a concept here, and some of you, I know I've got everybody on the call that we have live has a pretty good understanding of marketing, but this is going to be going out to a lot of people, and we're also going to be posting on YouTube. And I want everybody to just have an understanding of what a lead magnet is and how you can use your ebook not only as a tool to help your current sales process, but also a way for you to generate more leads. So a lead magnet is something that is basically an exchange. So if you are going to ask someone to give up their email info, which is very personal and private information. I mean, people don't like giving up their email, and with good reason. I mean, we're hearing about all the stuff that happens, and from the security perspective, and not to mention just the convenience factor of you give up your email and you're going to get, somebody's going to send you something. And then that's one more thing that you've got to deal with before you can close things down at night. So there's a lot of reasons why people may not necessarily be happy to give up that information. So we're going to give them something in exchange for that. And it may be an ebook, it could be some other form of really valuable content, whether it be a white paper, checklist, a cheat sheet, swipe file, so many different ways that lead magnets can work. And we're going to talk for the most part about ebooks today as a lead magnet, but there are so many other ways that you can take this strategy and implement it. And I just want you really to recognize that this is one of the most critical elements in your communication plan and how you're going to engage with prospects and clients. So what can it do for me? First of all, of course, we're all about getting those qualified leads. And then if you remember what we talked about a few weeks back, we did an episode on mental triggers and the psychology of creating content that converts. And an ebook can be a very critical step in that buyer journey that not only builds your credibility, but it also really dives into that commitment step that we talk about. And it gives your prospects the opportunity to actually try you out or take you for a test drive before they fully engage in that customer experience with you. ideally, there's some really cool things you can do with an ebook to create urgency with your right prospects. And I'm going to give just a really quick example here, because this is something that's so cool. And it's if you're familiar with the financial services industry, they have a tool that's called a retirement calculator that helps somebody recognize what they need to have in savings in order to replace their income. And that's an example of how you can leverage content, and that's a technology solution to create urgency. So think about if there is something that creates that ticking clock or that countdown that's happening in someone's life or in their business. That's a great opportunity for you to be thinking about where an ebook would fit. And then, of course, we really want you to think about how can you stop chasing that time for money trap and get to where you can create knowledge products and serve your clients in a way that you're serving one-to-many instead of one-to-one, or better yet, you create this product and you generate residual income for it. So those are some of the things that the ebook can accomplish for you. Chris, can you advance me? Now, my absolute all-time favorite is, of course, lead generation. So we're going to dive into that one first. So first thing that I want you to really understand and embrace is that people just love that DIY thing. There's a reason why they've got entire channels devoted to this for the home remodeling industry. There are just a lot of people that really want to try something out, and they like doing it on their own. Now, what you have to recognize about the doing it on their own, and we get kind of stuck and we get in our own way here because we start thinking, well, if I tell them how to do it, then they're not going to hire me, or they're not going to want to hire me. But what you have to recognize is that people have this journey from an understanding and awareness of where they've got an issue or a problem, all the way through they've solved the problem and don't even think about it anymore because it was in their past. And along that path, people have got to come to grips with exactly what the right answer is for them. So they love to research. And they do this through Google, and they do this through asking a lot of questions and talking to contractors and just evaluating what can work. The biggest thing that they have in the back of their mind is they've got this fear that if they buy something or do something, maybe it won't work for them. So an ebook or a knowledge product can really help them start to embrace your solution as their own and really gain an understanding of exactly how it would work for them. So ebooks can be really a lot of fun. The other thing is it's a very low barrier to entry. So ideally, you're going to make your ebook where it's digestible content that answers one big question that your prospect is facing right now. And that big question that you want to answer is you've got to look at where you're typically, if you think back on that, I talked about the sticky point that people get in your funnel, or there's a problem, or there's something that gets in the way that's keeping them from moving forward. So for instance, Kathy was on a call this morning with us, and I know she's serving a lot of companies right now that may be stuck because of just dealing with COVID and trying to figure out how they're going to navigate. So they may not really be in a position to wrap their arms around doing a project right now. So what you can do is, if they are getting stuck like that, then you can bring something in that will help them take a baby step in their process. So recognize that I just talked about how there's a life cycle of an opportunity that begins with the conception or the understanding that something's not quite where they want it to be, all the way through, well, they've dealt with that issue when it's no longer in existence within their business. So that's a life cycle. So you have to recognize that along that path, in the very beginning, you're going to have people that aren't even aware that there's something going on. There may be a challenge that you haven't even, they haven't even discovered exactly what's involved. It may be you go to the doctor's office and you feel fine, and they do blood work and discover that, okay, there's a problem. Well, now all of a sudden you're starting to pay attention. And that's the way that buyers also think. So you've got they don't even know about it, and then they move to that second stage, which is where, okay, now I know I've got a problem, but I don't know what to do with it. So it's that conscious incompetence. And then you move to that third stage of they know what they need to do, but they don't always have that desire or ability to actually execute and do it. And they're maybe getting stuck. And then you move into that fourth stage, which is where they do it and they feel good about doing it. And it's okay, I'm starting to get into the habit of it. I've got that new neural pathway and I'm starting to know how it works. And then that fifth stage of this whole journey is where they don't even think about it anymore. They own that skill. And what you have to do is, with the problem or the question that you are answering for your prospect, you need to look at where on this cycle are they with your particular issue. Now, before we move to the next slide, Chris, let me just take a really quick quiz. And if you would chat into the questions pane, and Chris is going to be moderating it. So what I'd like for you to do is just share with me if there is one big question that your prospects are dealing with right now. What would that really big question be? So let's think about it and then chat it into the questions. One big thing. It's causing them to get stuck. Anybody got anything for me yet? I know it takes them a while to type. Because I know some of you have a complex.
Does it make sense, or is it okay to spend money on myself during a pandemic?
Oh, that's a really good question.
And how do I cope with the COVID fallout?
Oh, that's another really good one. Okay, those are awesome questions.
And then for me, it's I get a lot of wait and see. People are afraid to spend money, and it's kind of being stuck on linoleum, right? A dog on linoleum, a lot of maybe action but no progress, and they're afraid to spend money and advertise because they don't think people are going to buy right now. So, which is not true.
Okay, and then we've got one here that's, what does the building a website process entail?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so really good questions. Okay, so that's first question. Now, second question is, where on this stage of learning are your prospects, your perfect prospects? Are they still in they don't even have an understanding that they're stuck? Or they know they're stuck, but they're not quite sure what to do about it? Or they know what to do about it, but they can't pull the trigger? Okay, Chris, that's right where yours are at.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Dawn, it may be where yours are as well. Sounds like, Joanna, yours may be a little earlier than that. They may have an issue that they don't even recognize. Okay, so it looks like a lot of them get stuck at that stage too. Okay, now why it's really important for you to answer this question is because that helps you get so specific with how you're going to create your content. And when you are putting together your ebook or any of the other information or insight, Chris is going to walk you through here in a little bit about exactly what goes into an ebook and how to write it and all this other stuff. I'm talking to you about the strategy behind it. That's my part in our conversation today. So your strategy behind this ebook needs to be focused on one person. So think about that one prospect that you're talking to as you're putting together your content and focus on helping them get through that particular stage of learning that they may be stuck at, to where they recognize that you could be the perfect solution for them. So that's what we want to really accomplish with that whole generating of leads and helping them move forward in the funnel. Now, from the qualifying the prospects perspective, now this, I've got a little bit of information to dig into. So Chris, go ahead and advance. So when we talk about preparing the ebook, we want to meet our prospects where they're at. And the thing that is so cool about how ebooks and some of these different lead magnets can work for you in your business is they truly do accomplish multiple steps within that psychological trigger, and it makes it so experiential. So I'm going to very quickly go through and talk about the different triggers that we have. Remember that we've got the visual and the auditory and the kinesthetic, and that within each one of these, you have clues for how you're actually going to state things throughout the ebook. So make sure when you are building yours that you really think about who is that perfect prospect. And do I need to make it more experiential? Do I need to have it be more visual? Does it need to? And when I talk about, so if you think about visual, it's pretty easy because it's pictures and images and infographics. And then the auditory is written text and case studies. And then the kinesthetic is exercises. And the more that you can create your ebook meeting your perfect prospect where they're at. I mean, we heard from Cody here last week about how the the majority of the population is visual, followed closely by auditory, and then the smallest percentage is kinesthetic. But remember that we all are a combination of those three. So my first is auditory. I'm primarily an auditory learner, and I'm followed closely by visual. And then there is a kinesthetic piece to it, but not quite as much as it is for my husband. My husband is more visual, kinesthetic, auditory. And you have to recognize that your prospect is that combination. So we don't just want to have a wall of text with how you create that ebook, but you're also going to want to make sure that you mix in images and that you, above all, have all kinds of really cool experiences that are going to be a part of this. Okay, Chris, can you advance? And remember, we want to provide a quick win with whatever that ebook is. So remember, it's one big question to help them move farther down the buyer journey in order to wrap their arms around exactly where your solution is going to fit. Okay, Chris, what would you add to this?
To the quick win? Yeah, it's part of it is building rapport. So for me, there's a lot of times where I can give them some information to help them do a smaller part of their problem as a DIY, and they realize then that qualifies me as a subject matter expert, and then they're more comfortable in engaging me on the more difficult projects.
Exactly. Not to mention, I know, Chris, that there are certain spots that you can better help them as they've thought through. It's a case of there are people, like, I work best when I have people that are at revenue because they have customers that they can go back. I can help people get to revenue, but I'm not quite as, it's a little bit harder buyer journey for them to wrap their arms around what sales is like if they've never closed a deal. So they don't know that it can be hard. And sometimes they think that, it can come easy. And in some cases it does come easy. But in a lot of cases, it's a lot of hard work. And I just recognize about what I offer that people have to be mentally ready in order to move forward. So the more I pull in the content that helps them get mentally ready, so that when we have those conversations, I can actually go to work and do my best work. That's where I really like pulling in this content. Now, before I turn things over to Chris, we have a couple of, and this is on the strategy side, we've got a couple of really big questions that you need to ask about your lead magnet.
Yes, yes.
And it's whether, pardon?
Oh, I was agreeing completely with you. Yeah, this is a big one.
Yes. Yes. So you've got to ask yourself, am I going to charge for this or am I not going to charge for this? And in some cases, it makes sense. It makes sense both ways. A lot of it depends on what you are trying to accomplish with the ebook. So for example, you've got to remember that what people have to pay for, they're going to pay more attention to than something they get for free. And the other thing is, if you think about that monkey's paw concept, and I actually wrote a blog post about this, about how to close your biggest deal ever, it's through making that first smaller sale that tethers that prospect to you, because then they want the next piece and the next piece and the next piece of what you can do for them along their transformation. And that first sale that you make to someone is always the hardest. And I don't care whether it's a sale for $100 or $100,000. It's still, that's that initial barrier. And what I encourage you to think about is how an ebook can be one of those commitment steps that is a very low barrier and allows them to engage and start to experience value. And again, remember, it's that psychological trigger. It's that commitment step. And it doesn't matter whether the commitment was $5 or $500. It's been made, and mentally your next sale is going to be a lot easier to make. So on the charge side, that's the, why you would, and then why not is you're going to create a barrier. And anytime that you put a barrier up, you're going to have some people that it weeds out. So what you have to determine is whether or not this stage of your funnel, you want to attract more prospects that you're going to weed out later, or you can use this as a stage in your funnel to recognize that, okay, so the prospects that I move further forward are going to be that much more qualified. So that's kind of the big thing at this point about the charge or not to charge. Now, before I move forward, let's take a really quick minute, and I want you to chat in on the questions pane about, would you charge for your ebook based on what you're thinking right now? Do you think that's a good strategy? Or do you think your ebook should be free? So let's take just a minute.
And while you guys are typing that in, as I just want to say that this is proof positive right here that your perfect prospect is not everybody with a wallet. It's not. There's this, Brendan has taught me years ago, is that some clients are platinum and some are spiders, right? They take more than they give, and this is a good yardstick right here. So does anybody have any input on this? Is anybody going to charge or not charge?
Okay, so I've got some that say charge and some that would say not charge. Okay, so we've kind of got a little bit in every. Okay.
Got it.
Cool, we've got some great comments. All right, so you're giving this the right thought though. You're looking at it whether or not it's going to help advance the right opportunity. And I want to underline and put in bold the right. Those words right there, that's what you really need to be thinking about with your strategy behind your lead magnet. Okay, Chris?
Well, thank you. And remember, everybody, you're going to get a link to this video and you're going to get this PowerPoint after we're all done here. And Brendan will send that out in an email. And so you can go back through some of these points and pick them apart. And you're going to be able to as we progress, I'm going to have several different links to resources. So you don't need to hurry and write them down or take a screenshot because you will actually get this. So I know for me, but what if I'm not Hemingway? I kind of start sometimes from a maybe a fear-based perspective. What if I'm no good at it? And for the purposes of this webinar, I'm going to stick with an ebook, but these principles work for white papers and other knowledge products. So some of us haven't written anything beyond a journal or something, so we're not sure we could write anything coherent. And if you've had a conversation with clients and kept their attention, then you can learn to write. As with everything, practice makes you better. And as a pro tip here, a second set of eyes it helps. It's invaluable. So there's a lot here, and we're not going to go too far into the weeds with all this. But so you may be wondering, what should you write about? And here are a list of ideas to spark your creative side. Um, you you may notice that over to the right is an ebook that Brendan wrote and that we are putting the finishing touches on. And what else would it be called but Black Belt Special Forces Superhero Rockstar Referral Strategies? Um, it would have
Because
been
we're going to do it all.
right. It would have been longer,
Because
but
we
I
solve
ran out
one
of room.
problem.
I ran out of the room on the cover, so I couldn't put more words on there. But and I'm using this and an accompanying landing page, a sales page, as an example. And later in the presentation, you'll get the URL so you can see for yourself. Remember, we're recording this, so you'll get all this stuff probably Monday. So as to your writing topics, remember you're an expert in your field, and people ask you questions all the time about your expertise. And these questions that you're asked, make a list of them. Think of it as a way to have a conversation 1 to 100 instead of 1 to 1 100 times. So think of problems that you've solved for your clients and the benefits. You could even write about what the cost is of not taking action, or how your process leads to a success story. Everybody loves a happy ending. And this is very important in my industry is the brainstorm. Read this entire list and then sit in front of a blank piece of paper. If it pops into your head, write it down. Do not edit as you go. Set a time limit or do it for as long as things come to mind. And when your time's up, then you can edit or refine the list. But first thing is just getting it out of your brain. If it pops into your head, get it out. You can also cover how your prospects can prioritize or solve a problem. As an example, we have a pandemic, and what human nature is let's go out and buy all of the toilet paper, right? It's not really the rational thing to do at that particular moment. So you are an expert in your field. So especially if you're like in finances or things like that, you can tell people instead of panicking and dumping all your stocks or whatever the actual intelligent, rational thing is to do. And you can point them on a path to a solution. You can cover obstacles that they may encounter and how to avoid them. And then finish with how you can help them shorten the path to their desired outcome. And again, these are just ideas, and I'm sure Brendan could add 20 more on there because she's written more books than I have. So, Brendan, anything to add?
Well, the biggest thing is just have it in the back of your mind about everything that is causing your prospects to get stuck. And that's often the very first place that it makes sense to help somebody get started. And don't look at this as I'm going to teach them everything they need to know about my solution, but I'm going to help them get ready for the absolute best experience with me they can have.
Yeah, excellent. So we're going to talk about a little bit about how do I write. And again, there are a million different ways to do this, and this is not going to be a creative writing class. This is just my experience in things like this. So there's an old saying about public speaking that I think applies here, and it's tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them. So let's use this idea to build an outline. Tell them what you're going to tell them. Get all of your points out first, and then take time to put them in an order that makes the most sense. In writing articles and things, what I like to do is send Brendan my outline, and she'll it, she has a different perspective than me, so she may go, seems like this should be over here, and then I read this article about this, and to me it's helpful because it allows me to think through it a little more before I start writing. Um, once complete, the outline, once it's complete, then you use this as the bones for your ebook or your white paper, and you fill in the muscle and the skin around this, right? So you now have your chapters, ideas, and you can go in and remember, we're not doing perfection here. You just get all of your information out. In my case, a lot of times I put in too much or I become redundant. And it's okay. This is just a rough. And then in my field, it's always a good idea in the creative field to get away from it for a bit and then read it with fresh perspective. Is it too wordy? Does it have points that don't help the narrative? Is something missing? Is it out of order? Right? I like to do this on paper. It's just my experience. You don't have to do this, but I like to create things on the screen, and then for some reason, when I print it out and see it on a piece of paper, it just like, how did I miss that? So get out a red pen and start marking it up. And so here's a pro tip here: is find that person in your family or friends that is a grammar and spelling fanatic, and have them go through it too. It's okay. They're probably OCD and will enjoy it. So um, let them do what they do. Right? I don't know. My experience is that in one of the where I used to live, there was a sushi place around the corner, and I loved that place. And they were native. They were from China, and so English was their second language. And as I was reading their menus, it became very evident that English was not their first language. And so I ended up spending more time proofing it than figuring out what I wanted to eat. And I ended up helping them fix their menu, because for somebody like me, having a lot of spelling errors or missing adjective or whatever conjunctions in their sentences is a very, very, very annoying. So, and you don't want people to miss the point of your book.
And there will be people who miss the point in the book because you didn't use the semicolon properly.
Right. Right.
And I in my family, it's funny because my mom she's actually been my English teacher throughout my entire childhood, and she actually used to run our school. So she is very good with grammar but she's not so great with punctuation. But my dad is the common Nazi of the household. Right. So right. It works out well. We've got it covered.
Exactly. So then you write another rough version. You've got your own notes. Maybe you have the grammar Nazis notes and all those things. And so you go back through and you refine. And you don't aim for perfection, or you'll never finish. With this version, take it to a colleague you trust and ask for their opinion. And this is more about content and structure than, excuse me, than the spelling and apostrophes and things. So, and we'll call this like a beta test. And you use their notes to polish your writing. And it may be that what I think is in most things that people will write notes, or think of it like this. If you're sending texts, how many times have you sent a text and the tone was misunderstood? So if your colleague writes some notes, it's probably a good idea to have a cup of coffee with them and let them expand on their notes, so you don't make any assumptions. So you use their notes to polish your writing. And then, did I mention proof? Please please, for my sanity, get a second set of eyes to proof it. And then to wrap up this is you will learn. You'll get better at it. And you'll learn what your voice is, what your, tone is. You'll learn what you're better at. You'll learn what works for you and what doesn't. And I have spent a lifetime reading books and well, anything really, from chewing gum for the brain, which is fiction, to biographies, to self-examination books, to industry articles. And I believe if you want to write well, you must read. So, and it looks like we have a question here is how
We
long
did.
should an
How long
ebook,
should it be? Yes.
right? And that really is like asking how much does a car cost, right? So it really depends on the subject matter um, and what your intent, right? So what's the outcome you're trying to achieve by this book? Brendan, you got any thoughts on that?
Actually, and I did so I'm one of those that I did a lot of reading prior to putting together this outline this week. And there were several different schools of thought on ebooks. The biggest one is don't make it too long.
Mhm.
Remember, you need to solve one big problem.
Right.
And don't try and cram 10 pounds of potatoes into a 2-pound sack. And in this case, it's a half a pound sack. So
Right.
just be careful when you are putting together an ebook. And Joanna, what you may want to think about is if you're thinking about web development, maybe your ebook would be on the process that your web designer is going to take you through and what you need to know in order to get the best outcome. And you'll call that, website 101 or, website hacks or something like that. You'll come up with your catchy title. But then the only thing that you're going to talk about is what the design process is like from their perspective and what they should expect. So don't make it too long, don't make it too short. It needs to be very informative. So you want your prospect to walk away from reading it with that was the best thing I ever read, or that was one of the best pieces of content that I've looked at in the last 30 days. I mean, you want it to be really, really, really well done. So this is not something that you're going to just throw together. So for instance, the lead magnet that we put together on the referral strategies, this is one that I wrote probably 2 years ago. No, I wrote it in 2012. So it's been around for 8 years. And I have refined it probably 4 different times, and it still wasn't ready until I spent probably 4 hours on it this week.
Right.
And when you see it, it's not a very long book, but it just took time to get it right. So that's my take.
Exactly. And I agree on that and Joanna, I think earlier you asked a question about what your process is writing something like that. And for my company, I have it's short, but it's like maybe you consider it a white paper. It's only like 2 pages, and it's the steps that my company takes to do web development and why we do what we do. So it's not in depth, it's not super long, but it's maybe 10 steps, and it's the creating the perfect client for you, figuring out what your target demographic is, and making a creative brief all the way through building a timeline um, and how we actually go through the process. So, and I think that's a good idea for you because it's a conversation that takes a while. That to me, it's easier for me to send that to them and then have a conversation about it. So you can refine rather than spending 2 hours talking. You're spending a half hour explaining. So let's move on here. So pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. That's sorry for the little Wizard of Oz reference here, but we're going to do a 10,000 foot view of the technical side of this, and just some tools that are available for you guys. So and you're writing, and people are like, well, where do I start the process in writing, and pick what's comfortable for you. If you're writing and you're on a PC and you like Word, then write in Word. If you like to write in a notebook and pencil on a notebook and sit on your back porch and look into the woods and things while you're doing it, do it that way. How you write shouldn't um, be it shouldn't be an issue. You need to do what you're comfortable with. Writing shouldn't be an obstacle. You can worry about formatting it later. So, but if you do write with a pen and paper, you're going to eventually have to type it in. So, and speaking of formats, there are a bunch of different types of ebooks. So one of them is EPUB, and that's used by iBook if you're on a Mac, and it's also used by several others too. Mobi is mostly for Kindle, and PDF, which is what we're kind of sticking with, Brendan and I, can be used on everything. You can read it on iBook, you can read it in Kindle, you can read it on your computer, you can read it on your phone, you can read it anywhere. And there are, 500 other formats, and for our purposes, that's I wouldn't really worry about all those other ones. What you want to do is hit the major kind of places where you can get it read. So, and the cover, this matters so much ever since, I'm in the advertising marketing field. And so ever since computers came out and people saw clip art, they thought, oh, I can be an artist. And that is not true. That is not true. Your cover matters. Think of, back when there was bookstores, you go into a bookstore and they have display tables full of books. And, if you go to Amazon, it shows you a bunch of covers. You know why that is? Because covers piques interest, right? And Brendan covered earlier is a larger percentage of people are visual learners. So
40%.
Yeah.
And then one thing that I want, before he gives you the 2 websites, I want you to also be thinking about shareability.
Mm-hmm.
So just remember, don't get right. Even if you sell it, if you decide you're going to charge for it, you still want this to get into the hands of as many people as you possibly can. So think about what is going to make it easily shareable and that people are going to want to share.
And that's a great point. That's why we're kind of sticking with PDF, is because you can put it on a number of platforms as a download. And again, as Brendan covered earlier, as a lead magnet, you're trading information, right? If I want to get your email and personal information, I'm going to give you this PDF. Well, at any landing page, any website, you can download it and read it on your computer. You can also email it to people. If you start getting into EPUB and Mobi, then you may have to go to Apple's bookstore or Amazon to sell the Kindle version of your book, right? So that's a great point, Brendan, is it really does matter. So here are 2 links for you. Excuse me. And the first one is freepick.com. You can there's free versions of this where you can log in and you can get vector images or raster photos, illustrations or photos, like the one you see here on this slide. That's a vector image. It's a drawing. And they're absolutely free, but you have to credit the artist. There's also a paid version where you can, if you pay them, the price for the image, then you don't have to credit anybody. You can use it as you want. Anyway, it's a good place to start. And if you have no experience in design, there's a website called fiverr.com, and it's, hundreds to millions to thousands of freelancers. So you can put hey, I've got this book, I'm looking for somebody to design a cover, and then people will bid, and you can look at some of their portfolio, what they've done, and pick one based on price or whatever. So it's a inexpensive way to move forward.
And you set the budget on that. It can be $5, it can be $500.
Yep. So, And then still formatting. So as Brendan said, once you've established how you're going to distribute your book, there are, say you've written it in Word and saved it as rich text format or a Word doc, or you can even export it as a PDF. Um, it, it really matters. Sometimes it's better to work backwards. So figure out how you're going to distribute it and then what format that needs to be. And then you can go to like kitaboo.com, the first link here. If you look online, most uh, professionals refer you to this site. It's the highest ranking one as far as creating your ebook, and it'll export into. You remember that 500 versions I told you before? It'll export into any one of those. So, and then there's other ones like um, 2epub.com, and it's more. It's not as all encompassing as Kitaboo. It's more just a tool that you upload a PDF and it will kick it out as an ebook. And then finally, there's other ones like Zamzar, and these are not. This is only three, and you could if you could Google it right now, and you'll see 20. Just like type in best online conversion for an ebook, and then put the date like 2020 on it, and it'll show you the highest ranking ones now. A lot of them that I saw didn't look. And again, I'm a visual person, so they didn't look very reputable, right? So if they didn't spend a lot of time working on their website, I was a little bit nervous on using them or referring them here. So, and then if you have Adobe Creative Suite, there's free templates you can do. And I'm only mentioning this because this is what I did. Is I found some free templates, and this is the book that I mentioned earlier. This is the second one I've done for Brendan, and there are free templates you can buy, and there's style sheets that you can apply. So you can use a certain style sheet for the, let's say, chapter name, and then it will actually build the table of contents for you, and it just helps to actually get everything working correctly. And if you don't have Adobe Creative Suite, you know who does? College students. And this is for someone like me, it's like, don't tell anybody, but I'm going to tell you anyway. It's college students are looking to build portfolio pieces, right? And so some of them will do work just so they can put it in their portfolio. Or you can pay them, go to them and say, hey, negotiate an hourly rate and say, okay, can you take 2 hours to design a cover or 2 hours to lay out my book? And then you go through it and go, okay, here's another hour, kind of refine these areas here. And so you can control your budget that way. So that's just another little tip for you. And then let's talk about actually selling your book. And for these purposes, I created a landing page on MailChimp, which is the image off the side. And you can see there's a little link underneath there so you guys can, after this webinar, can go and visit that page and kind of see what we set up there. But and you'll notice that the top images has that lead magnet image that we used for this webinar. So because you want all your marketing to be, look like it came from the same company, right? So where am I gonna, money? Where am I gonna sell this? So there's a couple of schools of thought here. You can go with the most traffic. You know why Walmart is doing so successful? It's because it makes companies sell their products for a lesser price, and it's people are scrambling to get into Walmart because their foot traffic is amazing. It's there's a lot of people there. So the reason why I say that is that you can sell it where the most traffic is, and that's Amazon. And so here is kdpamazon.com, and that helps you format. And there's videos and things that walk you through it and how to format your writing into a Kindle book, right? Which is, I believe it's EPUB, or no, it's a Mobi. And so if you want to go that way, let's think of it this way. I had a client that I talked to earlier this week that's selling some stuff, and we talked about building a website, which is pretty, there's a lot of cost to that, and then where she wants to sell it, and I was telling her, so you have a choice. You can build a website and do all the SEO to get the traffic there because it's not the field of dreams. If you build it, they will not come if you don't tell them it's there. And then if you're selling something that Amazon sells or Walmart or any others that have online stuff, you're not going to have the budget as a startup to compete in SEO against those big heavy hitters, right? There's just no way you're going to beat Amazon out. So one way is to put your ebook, if you're selling it, on Amazon. And so now you're sitting next to the Hemingways and the, when they search, it's for keywords, it's about subject matter. So another way,
And keep in mind also that it may be better to have 20% of something
right,
than 100% of nothing.
right, exactly. Another concept is to sell it on their site and yours. And there's a number of these sites, but one I found interesting was lulu.com. Now again, this is, a lot of these are I was researching on how to sell your book. So a lot of people talked about they want to give it away. So this may not be relevant to you, but it is relevant in the sense that you can go to this site, Lulu, and they'll help you format your ebook, or they'll help you publish it. Like if you wanted actual printed hardcover, or a hard copy of your book, and they'll sell it on their site, or well, you can sell it on their site, and they'll give you a little plugins that work on your site, so you can sell it on your site as well. So that's just another avenue that you might consider. And then there's landing pages, which is what we did. I built it in MailChimp. Oh, looks like that URL is wrong. The first one is a lead page. It looks like lead pag. I'll fix that before I send it out. It's lead pages, and it's that you can build just a sales page for your ebook. So let's say for those folks who were just going to give it away for free, you can build a page that's not necessarily part of your site that you can just send out in an email. And what you do is in your emails, you build a signature that says, has your normal name and contact information, but above it goes, some kind of copy like, are you creating a predictable and steady stream of referrals in your business? If not, go get our free ebook here, and then I'll link to it. So, and that way you don't have to type all that marketing stuff in every time. It's just part of a signature. And again, lead pages is a great way to. Somebody typed in what lead pages in. Yeah, lead pages is a great way to start, because it kind of works as a CRM or with a CRM. So there's targeting, and there's capturing people's information, and you can there's nurture sequences that you can build, and MailChimp is the same way. And there's other things like what's the site? Kajabi we're looking at, and that's a whole nother platform that has marketing and sales and nurture sequences and things. So it's another thing to keep in mind. And then the last part of this is, if you're selling it, there's a thing called a gateway, and that's where they actually check out. And what I recommend is if you're not, well, this doesn't matter if you're giving your book away, but if you're selling it and you don't know how well it's going to sell, PayPal or Stripe are the entry level versions of this. And what that affords you is, for little fees, they keep all the credit card information and the pertinent information. And then what that does is it keeps it off of your server, your website. And so you're not accountable for it. Because right now, my brother's a president of a bank, and we were talking about what's the most profitable business if you're starting up a new business. And he was talking about cybersecurity, because it's 24/7. Banks and financial institutions are trying to be hacked constantly
Look at Garmin.
Yeah, like from all over the world. So I say that to say is, you don't want to keep that kind of pertinent information and be held accountable for it. So if you use PayPal or you can use Stripe and things like that, and what it does is it looks like your site. People click on the buy button, and it takes them actually to PayPal or Stripe, and they check out there, and then it goes back to the thank you, throws you back into your own site. So, and that's just, for those of you who are giving it away, it's not really relevant to you, but it's for those of us who are trying to diversify revenue streams. It's just 2.9%. That's pretty standard across, and there's several more, there's Square, Enix, and all these others. That's pretty standard fee, 2.9% plus 30 cents. So anything you want to add to that, Brendan?
Nope.
Okay. So let's go ahead and wrap up here. We want to thank Women's Business Center for helping us, or they're sponsoring us, and we're just so grateful that that they are allowing us to use their name and helping us put out information about our webinars. And you can go to Kansas City WBC.eventbrite.com to see other things that they're putting out, and they have a ton of interesting content.
Yeah, they've got a lot of stuff going on Wednesdays around finance, accounting. They have started a social media series, and they just wrapped up an HR series. And then I also saw that they've launched a YouTube channel. So you can go back in if you've missed any of their episodes and check those out as well. And you can, of course, go check out ours as well.
Right.
And then we would also love to invite you, if you are at a spot right now in your business that you're really thinking you want to dig into that residual income and answer that question in your business, how do you create that? We would love to help you with that. And you can register, jump in on our the launch of an upcoming webinar series that Chris and I are partnering with. And it is the Brand You program. And it's how do you create a product of you? And we're pretty excited about that. So thank you. Thanks, Chris, for helping me put this together and, pull an idea that I've wanted to do for a whole lot of years out and put it in a format that is helpful to hopefully a lot of different people right now. Because I think everybody's trying to answer the question of how do I remain relevant to my perfect audience and how do I continue to drive revenue? And those are the questions that we answer every single week in our Business Unusual webinar series. Next week, we're going to be going back to one of my absolute favorite topics. We're going to be digging into creating a referral rewards program for your customers. And that one is going to be pretty amazing because it's my favorite topic of all time. And it's actually the foundation of where my business started in 2005. So you're going to get to hear all about that. And anyway, I'll just wrap things up with a big thank you to everybody for taking time out today and registering to participate in this session. We hope you got some great ideas out of it, and we're excited to see what you build as your ebook or lead magnet. Please feel free to share. Also, Chris and I are going to start doing some other video recordings. They're not going to be slides. They're just going to be videos where he and I talk about the strategy behind this. So next week, we're going to throw together a recording that's going to be in our Facebook group. And that one will be on driving traffic to your lead magnet and how do you get it out there and really use it as a top of funnel. And that's separate from this series. You're going to have to go over to Facebook in order to participate that. So that's your opportunity for us to see you over there. So thank you again for taking time with us today. And I hope you have a fantastic weekend. And I want to leave you with a parting thought. And it's to get what you want, you have got to help others get what they want. Have a great day and good selling.
Thank you, everybody.